Hey Brian, how's it
Hey,
going tonight?
what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, dude. I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, and I'm looking forward to talking about tonight's subject, which is what is your time worth? Just because we both like watches, and I just want to hear your story, and you can hear my story, and we just share with each other about our watch journeys. And
Okay. First question, how do you say your first name?
my first name is Anit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's intimidating because you see the ANN, then there's the H, then the WEs,
Yeah.
then there's a T, and then there's an E, but the H is silent.
Yeah, I didn't know how many people have actually asked you that question. And I figured with this podcast, it'd be something that the listeners would maybe want to hear.
Yeah, most people just refer to me as Oakley still. I think it's weird because I think Oakley's always been my identity when I came to America. So when I played soccer, my coach was like, Oakley. And then, everyone just started calling me Oakley,
Sure.
And very few people, even if they've known me for a very long time, they ever call me by my first name. My wife doesn't call me by my first name.
What do you prefer?
I don't have a preference. I think based on what people call me, it allows me to know where they know me from.
Okay.
Like the person that says, "Hey, Anit," I'm like, okay, I went to school with this person.
Is there anybody who tries to bridge that gap from knowing you now and not knowing you then, but still like finding like a good understanding of calling you a neat? And I mean, I'm not saying that's an important thing, but as far as getting to know you and understanding the value of that relationship, I would think that if someone did try to bridge that, I think it would be a different perspective for you. 'Cause I don't think that comes across a lot. I may be wrong, but
Yes and no. I think that it does not come across a lot. It does come though, but it's always few and far between. Because whenever someone calls me Anit, it's always, especially in an environment where I'm not familiar with a lot of people, it completely throws me like off guard.
yeah.
Like anywhere, like I stop and I have to process. So even I think a week ago, I was at the grocery store and someone was like, "Hey, Anit," and I started looking around, like I didn't recognize the voice or anything, and I had like my name tag on, and it was just another, one of the workers there just saying like, "Hey, Anit," and I just thought that was very weird.
I almost kind of want to call you Anakin because you have a Mandalorian shirt on, but it's actually Dadalorian. So
Yeah,
I'm just saying the association with Star Wars.
but the watch is also
It is. I was gonna get there, but you just got to get into it kind of subtly. So, first question. Well, that's actually second question now. What were you listening to on the way here?
I actually wasn't listening to anything on my way here. Normally, I am listening to things. If I'm going somewhere with a purpose, I try to let that be the thing that I kind of meditate on.
Does that mean when you're going to work, you listen to vegetables?
I do, because I have to produce a lot.
I was going to go VeggieTales with that, but
that's actually pretty cool.
I'm just saying.
It's weird. It's like how when you're around someone and you want to give them your all, and I could either be on my phone texting you while we're hanging out. I like mentally, I want to give you my all too. So I never want outside influences to come, even though, it's just music or I'm not listening to anything bad or anything, but just I want to be in that zone.
Present.
Yeah, just present. That's something that I think is missing in a lot of relationships, like friendships, especially. It's like, I can't hang out with someone and we're both here, but we're not here.
Yeah.
That
other
aggravates
things
me.
going on in life. It's kind of hard. I think it's also hard if you don't associate with that person with kind of the same entity that they are, meaning a dad, a husband, kids, life. It's kind of hard. I mean, you can have friends that are outside of that. I mean, we all do, but to have, real relationship, you have much more in common with someone who's going through the same things you are. It's just kind of how life is sometimes.
Yeah. So, I understand that. Like, for example, we're both here, we're both married, and we both have children.
Yeah.
But, our significant others know, like, what we're doing, so it's different versus, all right, I'm just on Instagram right now, it's we know that life happens still, so there's this mutual understanding, but the Facebook thing can wait if we're having a conversation.
Well, that's why I don't really like social media at all. No offense to the podcast, but podcast to me is different than social media. So,
interestingly enough, for the first time today, I've actually posted about the podcast on social media. I've never done that before.
Really?
Never never occurred to me. So all the streams or whatnot that I've gotten is just because people just wanted to listen.
Just randomly find it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I prefer it that way.
Well, I mean, it's if you want to build popularity, it depends on why you want to build it, right? And if the idea behind what you're doing is just to you enjoy it, it's a lot different than trying to, meet the schematics of the algorithm of what whether the podcast or YouTube or Facebook has to make yourself popular.
Exactly, because so I've always been of the thought that if you build something, you're the one that built it. No one can take it away from you, right? So if Facebook builds me up or Instagram or TikTok builds me up, that can be taken away. But the true diehard people that tune in, like they're there for that reason. They invested their time. It wasn't social media or popularity that brought them, And also, if I say something now that 10 years down the line decides to become controversial, guess what? I can't be canceled. So
I'm also going to point out that I think it was unintentional, but you referenced a movie, which would be Field of Dreams, but it's if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
So I believe it was like 1989, Kevin Costner.
Yes.
And James Earl Jones. So, and I'll also mention those kind of things as we go along, just because that's just who I am, and I just think that it's pretty neat. So time, what is it? So my third question, which actually is like my second written down, is why wear a watch?
Why wear a watch?
Yeah, why?
Do you really want to know the answer to that question?
Of course I do. That's why I wrote it. I wrote it down. It's on my phone. So therefore, since I wrote it down, it has to be truth.
The reason why I wear a watch, it's because it represents me being alive.
Okay.
That is why I wear a watch. And it represents purpose.
Okay.
And a lot of things got me to the point of staying in my purpose.
Okay.
The lessons in life. For example, watches were always gifts, as when I was younger, and I always loved all the watches that I got as gifts. Then, maybe you get a watch on a birthday or something, which it's birthday or Christmas. Well, it's Christmas, right? But then maybe your parents saw you working on something hard and you accomplished that thing. You weren't doing it for a reward. It just came out of the blue. Your parents are just acknowledging, oh my goodness, you really worked hard on this. Here you go. And when I was younger, I just had a lot of those things that would work out that way, that I would be doing things, and then people just knew that I liked watches, so that would be the gift that I was given. And that's how my love for watches really started. Because I just looked one day and I was like, oh my goodness, I have all these watches. It didn't, it just worked out that way.
That's a pretty good reason then, definitely. Well, then we'll do what mostly I think every podcast does. If you wear a watch, we'll do a watch check. What you got on today?
Today I have an Invicta limited edition Mandalorian watch. This was a gift from my best friend Phil. That was on the is Yoda the good guy or the bad guy, episode of the podcast.
Okay.
So one of the things that we do with each other is that we gift each other watches just constantly.
Okay.
That's just our thing that we do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll mention mine. Mine is a Seiko SKX 007, original, not modded, from 2017. They don't make this watch anymore. It has the original movement, which is the 7S26 or 7S62. And great watch, wonderful lume. I can wear it all the time. And as long as I wear it, it runs.
So here's something like I think is pretty cool that you just mentioned, is that when you said they don't make this anymore.
Yep.
See, I love those kinds of watches.
So do
That's why I always get limited edition watches.
Okay.
Where I know, it's only 1 in 700, 1 in 1,000.
Sure. Well, it's like if you talk about Rolex, they make 1 million watches a year. That's low for them, in the fact of what they've done before and produced in the past. So, yeah, I'm a vintage watch guy. I normally don't. I think all the watches I have, which I have, I think only 4, but there's a story to each of them. This one, not so much, but a simple one is a watch that I've been wanting to get for a long time, and just waited for the right opportunity to get it. I've got a Tag Heuer, which is it's a dive watch. It's from 1987. It was from a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel. So pretty neat story there. I've got a Ben Russ, which is an American company out of New York. And they that watch is a field watch. It's like a 1 out of 100. And then my son got me a Tissot PRX, just the quartz, but wonderful watch, blue face. Again, a story to it there. So I don't have many, but the ones that I do have, I really love, and I try to wear them often. And then of course I have the typical Apple Watch, which tells you about your health and all this other stuff, and which is great. I have no complaints about whatsoever, and we'll wear it all the time. But if you're wearing a watch, you need to know why you're wearing it. Don't just wear it to wear it. Have purpose behind it, because that's why you have it on you. And if not, you shouldn't be wearing anything. Yeah. But I definitely am one of those guys that if I walk out of the house without it, I know it. Yeah. The other day I went out without a watch, and I thought I was naked. I was like, well, what's going on here? But
if I don't wear a watch, I feel unbalanced.
Yeah.
Even though technically wearing the watch means I'm unbalanced, not having it means I am mentally unbalanced.
Well, are you left or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Okay, so I'm left.
Yes.
But I found out that on my right arm, when I wear like stainless steel or whatever, my wrist will break out.
Yep.
But on my left wrist, it doesn't.
Yeah, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Even though, a lot of times I'll actually wear my watch on my right hand, and people who are left-handed ask me if I'm left-handed.
Yeah. So I don't know if a lot of people pay attention to that or that it matters, but it's something you think about if you notice people. And I've always had to have in my life that type of thinking. I'm always looking, just because of the career that I've had and the things that I've done, and military service, whatever it may be. It's just how I ended up becoming over time, is that I just notice things. And I notice watches more than I do now than I did before, and I don't try to judge someone on the watch, because you never know how they got the watch. You don't know what it took for them to get the watch. But you also don't know even if it's a simple Casio digital watch, how special it is to them. So I think as I get older, especially now that I can say that I'm a grandpa, it's a different way of looking at stuff. So, and being thankful for just having the things that I have,
Yeah, that's profound. I had this, speaking of Casio watches, I had this Casio digital watch.
Which are like, if you look on Amazon's top 100 watches, I think Casio and Seiko are like the top 50.
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, it's just insane that even in this time of day, the simplicity of a watch.
I prefer that over anything.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So I'm down to 4 watches exactly right now, as of 2 weeks ago.
So we both had the same one. We did both the same amount of watches.
Yes. So I gave away. So what happens is, once certain things have lived their life, I either give them away or I sell them.
Usually give shoes away.
Actually, I always keep shoes. Shoes are a different story, but my shoes is always limited, because everything's about comfort for me.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
I'm the this is for this, this is for this, this is for this, and rotate.
Sure.
And so
I agree with that.
I believe in being a minimalist when it comes to a lot of things. And sometimes when I have a little bit too much material things, it makes me feel heavy.
Okay.
And I don't like that feeling of being heavy.
Okay. So what watches do you have?
So as of right now, I have 2 more Invictas at home.
Okay.
And I have I don't know the name of it. I actually haven't even looked at the watch. This is a gift that I got. I haven't looked at it in terms of what brand it was. I've never seen the brand before. It starts with an F. It's probably German, or
is it Fairer?
It's not that. It's like something that like that it requires like the tongue.
Oh,
You know what I mean? You know what I'm
one of
talking
those
about?
words.
Yes, one of those words, like with
Okay.
the unlock in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I definitely couldn't pronounce it. So
It's okay though.
but it's nice. So it's one of those movement watches that operates on kinetic movement.
Okay.
So as long as you're moving, it'll move.
Same with what's on my wrist. So we
Yeah.
got you have an automatic, you have a mechanical, and then you have, of course, a battery powered watch.
Mm-hmm.
So quartz, which usually keeps, as they say, probably the best time.
Mm-hmm.
And then then you get into other things like tourbillons and all this other stuff, and I think you can tell time with a $200 watch almost as you can with a $2 million watch.
Yeah.
Just depends on what you think people should be looking at about you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So here's what I go for. I go for uniqueness and rarity
Okay.
over name brand, because people who know will know, right? When I have a conversation with someone, they know a guy likes Star Wars.
Sure.
It's like, whoa, where did you get that watch from? I haven't seen this watch. That's it. It's not so much the Rolex. I won't say that I dislike or despise Rolexes. I just don't think that I've lived the life where the Rolex is necessary yet.
Sure.
It has to have a meaning and purpose for me, and it's not there. And there's many times where I've been tempted to buy one.
Sure.
But I've learned lessons along the way that tells me not to get one.
Yeah.
For example, when I was 21, I was gifted a Swiss watch that I could not pronounce. And I thought that it was, maybe it's just some cheap watch. Because you just sometimes you don't think that someone would have given you something so expensive.
Sure.
And it was when
so you almost equated to like a value kind of thing, not in cost, but in the value of you.
Yes.
Meaning that you're equating it because of what you thought about yourself.
Yes.
And what someone would spend on you because of that.
Yes.
And that was a hard thing for you to get past.
Yes, because it was like, I haven't earned that yet. I'm not at that stage. So I didn't know.
Totally understand.
So a couple months go by and I looked and the watch, nothing was turning and you could see the internals and everything.
Sure.
And it wasn't. So I said, I have to go get this serviced, and at this time I never really needed to get a watch serviced. It was just, didn't think about that. Right. So, because, I'm 21 and I go and to the first person, it was like some local jeweler, and they told me, I can't mess with this. I was like, what do you mean?
Well, that's good. It's are honest.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, why you can't? It's like, one, it's going to be expensive, and I don't have the authorization to use this, and if I damage anything, I can't,
fix it.
I can't fix it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like where do I go? And it was forgot where he sent me, but it was somewhere in the Florida Mall area.
Okay.
Over there on that side.
All right.
So sent me over there. This is, oh my goodness, it's almost 10 years now. So sends me over there.
Okay.
And I remember after they did everything, they took everything apart, and I paid like $200 for them to service the watch.
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, I can't afford this watch. Like if I'm going to use it and it's going to be it's working, I have to use it all the time. One, and I just can't afford maintenance on it, because if I wanted, I would like the luxury of just putting the watch on and that's it. Not if I haven't worn it in 6 months, I don't know what's going on with it, if that makes sense. So that was a lesson that I learned, and that's one of the reasons why I don't want a Rolex, because of maintenance. And then I got to the point where I had certain watches that I had to get insurance on in case anything happened to them. And so because I was paying insurance every month on the watches,
so how many of those watches would you say you had to pay insurance on?
Maybe 8 at the time.
And do we know how to say those watches' names?
see. Okay, so here's the truth. I'm fortunate enough to have like really good people in my life.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
That the things that I love and enjoy, I don't have many people that would just give me something that just has nothing to do with me.
Sure.
And when you have like good friends, you don't do things for them because you expect something in return.
You should ever.
Exactly. So the fact that like when I get blindsided in a good way, that someone
would do something for you like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're gonna make me cry right now. Just this completely like left field. I couldn't justify that for myself because of the fact that, like, again, for where I was at in life, I didn't think that I've earned that, because again, it's always about the earning aspects that I associate with the watches. That this is my milestone. If I go out and I spend, say, $700 on a watch, right? I know that that's where I'm at in life. That's I met that goal of, okay, I can afford this watch. I can afford the upkeep of this watch. If it breaks, it's not a problem because that's where I'm at in life. Versus if you have a more higher end watch and if it breaks, you have to go, like fixing this is a problem. It's like, what do I have to give up to fix this watch?
Yeah.
I don't want to ever have to think about those questions when I have a watch. Just not right now. I think in 10 years, I think I'll be in a good enough spot where I don't have to think about those things.
Okay. What if you flip that script, though? You change the identity of that premise. Instead of thinking of it as that you aren't there yet, what if you changed it to God's blessing me because he knows where he wants me to go?
Absolutely. I mean, that's an angle to consider. But here's my thing when it comes to watches, just the person, and
Sure.
not the gift.
I get you.
Is that the watches are not just a milestone like marker, but they're a lesson learned marker. And so if someone gives me a watch, even if it's lower value or higher on the higher end, there was no me lesson in there.
Okay.
And it throws off like the collection. I'm a super OCD with it.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. When I was in college, one of my friends, older friends, most of my friends are older than I am, started a business. And he's like, hey, you're super smart, help me with my business and whatnot. Business is doing extremely well. And I remember I live here in Claremont, and the business was all the way in Winter Park.
Okay.
So that's a drive, and I was, extremely dedicated to it. He did pay me, he never cheated me or anything like that. But the more money he started to make, the poorer life decisions he started to make as well.
Which can happen.
Yes. And for me, the fact that I was helping him with his business, it hurt me a lot emotionally, because whenever I spend time doing something, I want to see it grow and flourish. And that was like my ultimate reward. I didn't want to be his business partner. I just wanted him to succeed because we're friends.
Sure.
And, in the midst of it, he decided, okay, now I'm going to acquire a second business. And when I looked at the situation, I'm like, dude, honestly, it's not a good idea. You're doing well with one, but you're also making poor, just life decisions. You're burning the money as quick as you're making it.
Yeah.
You should slow down. So then he decided to get an assistant, which was an attractive lady, and ends up, giving the business to the attractive lady because that's what he was chasing. He was just trying to impress that lady.
Yeah.
Which is why he bought the other business.
Okay.
Just to say, hey, I'm making this much money and I have this much money. And in the end, she is the only one that benefited from that interaction.
Okay.
So when I left that situation, I remember feeling down in the dumps because I knew what the outcome of everything was going to be, and he just couldn't see it. And I still was, was like, hey, man, this is dumb. Like, you've built something and you're literally giving it. Was like, no, this is going to be a tax write. He was just telling me a lot of dumb things. And I remember feeling hurt because of the fact that I put so much time into the business.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I could have looked at it as I lost a lot of time, or I could look at it as, man, there's some dumb people in this world. and lesson learned. So that taught me how to pick and choose, like when I'm going to truly like either be a part of something versus just giving advice to something. I learned that lesson. And so, that's when I got another Invicta watch to mark that lesson that I learned.
Oh,
So
okay.
the value of
Definitely was a long way around to get to the premise of the bond. So I get it. So do you still have that watch?
Nope. I sold that series. I call them series because of that lifetime period. I sold that series probably about 3 years ago. So once I am, like I said, when I feel heavy, that's when I just.
So here's a
start
question:
cleaning.
did you get the same value you put into it back when you sold it?
This is going to sound roundabout. Yes and no at the same time.
It's okay.
Because that particular set of watches, all of them were Invictas in that set, and it was a really good friend. It was when I think I needed to get something. It was like too many things at once. My wife was pregnant, and she was in that stage of, we have to get all of these expensive things because the more expensive they are, the safer they are. Things, you're talking about like one car seat that's $1,000. The stroller is $1,200. Like just literally thousands of dollars, just so that I could kind of sleep. So that's why I sold that set of watches.
There's a lot of things we will do when those changes in life occur.
So, yes, because the peace of mind that I got, because she's like, we have to have this car seat.
Yeah.
I was like, this car seat, but we already bought this car seat.
Yeah.
The peace of mind, that's why I say yes or no, because I needed it fast. So I sold them all to one friend because I knew he loved watches as well.
And is that friend still a good friend?
Still a good friend.
And does he still have the watches?
He still have all the watches.
Okay.
All of the watches.
So then it actually...
and he's tried to give them back to me because he felt guilty, and I told him no.
Yeah.
He's tried to. He's multiple times.
I bought one Invicta watch. It broke.
Yes.
I reached out to Invicta.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't help me.
Mm-hmm.
Never bought an Invicta watch since. Now, I'm not complaining about the company or saying anything.
I love that, though.
I mean, it's just one of those things that was like one of the things, and this is a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago, maybe. And I was really excited about it, and it broke. The second hand broke off. I'd had it for maybe 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, I could just call them. They'll help me with it. And I called them and reached out to them. And like, we're sorry, sir, we can't help you. I said, okay. I said, well, I appreciate that. Didn't badmouth them. Still won't. I'm not saying they're not a bad company. I could have just got a bad watch because they make hundreds of thousands of watches.
Yes.
So, and not every watch is perfect.
Absolutely.
So, and I think if I went with the attitude to be negative about it, then I wouldn't like watches. So,
when we talked about watches and you told me that story before, I thought it was funny how our stories are the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Which is why I love Invicta watches and I'm deathly loyal to them.
Sure.
And again, even though since I purchased my first Invicta watch, I've had plenty of bad experiences there.
Yeah.
They got me at the perfect time in my life.
Yeah.
Was because my dad had bought me an Invicta watch because I made straight A's. And it was one of those it was one of the aviators.
Yeah.
And so that particular one just made me so happy. And I just remember and then he got one for himself, so we'd have a matching pair.
Okay.
So I was already just like over the moon.
Sure.
Because it was just like I said, one of those blindsided gifts. But I cherished that watch. So then when I went to go purchase a watch for myself, because I had to beg my parents to get a job when I was in high school because I wanted a job just so I could buy things and not have to ask for money.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't want me to work. They were like, oh, here's an allowance or whatever. But it's like, no, it's not the same.
Not the
It's
same.
not the same. Because just like they would give me money, they could also say, nope, not today, you know? And I just didn't like that concept. So they finally agreed to let me have a job. And one of the first things that I wanted to get was an Invicta. I didn't have, bills or anything. I'm still a kid. And I go to the store because, I also have my driver's license too. And now I have money so I can buy things. So I go to the Invicta store and I went to go buy a watch. And it was a limited edition. And this one was a part of their Pro Diver series.
Okay.
And you can see like it had a design of a scuba diver.
Yep.
And I remember it was like, hey, this is my first time buying a watch, not the digital. It's just a watch.
Yep.
And the guy was like, you know what? We're going to make it special today. So when I bought the watch, he literally just gave me another watch for free.
Really?
Like he just gave me another one.
Wow.
And so I just was over the moon about that.
Yeah.
Like just,
Was it at an Invicta store?
It was at the actual store.
Yeah.
So then the gentleman was extremely like nice.
Yeah.
And every time I needed like something serviced, he never charged me. He's like, hey, when you like something and you love it and you're passionate about things, he's like, and because you're young, you'd be surprised the doors that will open up for you.
Yeah.
Do
you still have either of the two watches, the one your dad got you and the second one that you bought on your own?
No.
So neither of them.
I start over fresh. I'm telling you, clean slate.
So, but the one that you said you cherished though from your dad, does he still have the one?
I don't know. I've never asked him about the
When was the last
watch.
time you asked him?
I've never asked him about it, period. To be honest with you.
Well, because that's one of the things I love about watches, because they're things that I can pass on to my boys.
See, I would do that with my son, but because that's the premise. I think the premise of the relationship.
Sure, without a doubt.
Because
that's very contextual to the identity of what you're
to
talking
me
about.
and my son. I've already started buying my son watches.
Yeah.
And I just to get him into the habit of like just having a watch. So I've not bought him like anything expensive.
Yeah.
But just the things he likes. He likes Paw Patrol, so I buy him a Paw Patrol watch.
Yeah.
They always get broken, but at least he's like forming that. Oh, watches are cool. Identity. But with my dad, he never wore any of the watches that he had.
Sure.
So it was hard. Even though I loved watches, that just was not his thing.
Yeah.
Just never wore a watch.
Yeah. So if you look at like how watches are today, it's so different than, what we thought of them as we were kids growing up.
Mm-hmm.
As kids, to me, it was just something that told time. And when I was younger, it was called the sun. Went outside, I played sports. Didn't matter.
Dark.
You just came home when it was dark, and if you didn't, then you got in trouble. So, so we're going to Israel in end of February next year. And so my goal is to find a watch that I can take when we travel. Specifically, probably something mechanical or automatic. That way I don't have to worry about a battery.
Mm-hmm.
But something field-oriented that would be something that I can take and travel with all the time.
Yes.
And then that watch, when I'm done traveling, however long in my future that God allows me, that will be something to pass on to my family as well, because that will have been everywhere. It'll have been to Israel. It'll have been to the Philippines. It will have been to these places, and it will have that story. And then in between, I have these other watches that, like the one I'm wearing right now, that's something that I don't have to worry about a battery. I can wear this. It sits on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always tell me time. It's a day date, so it always has that. It's water resistant up to 200 meters. I can go in a shower with it, go swim with it, and I will have no problem. So to me, it's like an indestructible watch.
Mm-hmm.
And for the fact that, it's how it came. That's the other thing that I kind of attribute myself to when it comes to watches, is not changing how they made it. If I wanted it changed, I would ask for a changed watch. I wouldn't, I'm more about the original and why it was made the way it was. Because I think, to me, that's the heart of the person who designed it.
Yes. Ironically enough, I think watches are also a conversation that you can't have with everyone.
Correct.
Even when you talk about the value of time.
Yeah.
And I remember I had a watch, and you get to the point where I've never been one of those people that hold on to certain things. So once that thing that's passed, it's like my brain just deletes that information. Especially with names. I'm good with dates, but I've never really been good with names. However, I had this Invicta watch. Again, like I said, the majority of the collections were always either limited edition or like part of their reserve series.
Yeah.
And that particular one was made in America. And that series, the series that came after that, like they weren't made in, no longer made in America. It was one of their older watches as well.
Yeah.
And so I remember someone wanted to buy it for me, and I said, I'll give you, like, you're a cool guy. Like, I'll give you a discount on it. Yeah. And if it was another watch enthusiast, they would know automatically, hey, like, this is a discount.
Yeah.
Right? So when you say things like, oh, this one is made in America, like, you automatically know, like, what that means versus, oh, yeah, this one was made in Bangladesh. Yeah. It's not the same.
Well, like this watch, there's 2 different versions.
Yes.
There's this version, which is made in Japan,
yes,
which is the original version.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the other version that was made in like Singapore.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, when you talk about this watch, it's the actual original SKX 007 made in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually tells you, as you can hear that's the Velcro on my watch. You turn it over, it actually tells you on the back of it, made in Japan.
Yes.
So you can actually read that on the watch itself. And it tells you on the bottom.
And you see that's a diver.
Yeah, it's a diver, but it also, you can see in the bottom there, it says made in Japan,
yes,
where the other ones don't. So, and like it's, again, like if you talk about a Swiss-made watch, right? Is the movement Swiss? Is what that's housed in Swiss? What is determined that makes it a Swiss watch? Or like, so Benrus, the one watch I was talking about, is an American-made watch, because it's made here in the U.S. In New York, and so it's something different, and you can attribute, and I have no problem with, because there's, if you talk about Seiko, for instance, you have Seiko and then you have Grand Seiko.
Yes.
Grand Seiko watches can be anywhere close up to like $10,000-$12,000
yes,
some of them.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's a Seiko. But it's
not though.
It's not. It's the movement of the watch. It's how it's made, but you don't necessarily compare a Grand Seiko to a Longines or something of. I mean, you can. It depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
There's no discriminatory, to me, difference between a Grand Seiko and a Longines or whatever other kind of watch that you would like to look at. I mean, you really have to kind of look at heritage. Seiko has been made forever.
Yes.
Grand Seiko, made forever. All these other companies, they've been made forever.
Yes.
So, and I think that's what really attributes, like, I'm a big Tudor fan.
Yes, I was actually just going to mention that just now.
I don't own a Tudor watch, but I could tell you a myriad of Tudor watches, and the differences. And they went from the ETA movement to the in-house movement. And, now you have the 58, 54. I'm a fan of the 41 Heritage, which is a little bit of a bigger watch. But then you also have the Pelagos, and you have the Tudor Perpetual. I mean, there's the Oyster Perpetual, which came out of Rolex. And then the guy who started Rolex is the guy who started Tudor, and really Tudor's just made kind of a resurgence in the last just couple of years, because for, I guess, about 10 years, it wasn't sold in the U.S. There was some issue, I guess. And that can be a whole different discussion, I guess, if you get into it, really. So, but, I think if something catches your eye and you like it.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about telling anybody why you like it.
Exactly.
Because it's your watch.
Yep.
But then also be smart about it. If you see a watch that has a sapphire crystal, it's got a Salida movement in it, or an ETA movement, and it's $1,000, and you look at a $2,000 watch and it has the same things, and it's because of a name, why would you spend the money on the $2,000 watch when you don't need to?
Exactly.
When you're getting just as good of a watch at $1,000. There's a company out of Ireland called Nomadic, Nomadic. They've got a Salida SW1 in it, has sapphire crystal. It's water resistant to 200 meters. Looks like a very well-made watch. You could go with something else, a Tudor. You could go with, which are great watches. Omega, great watches.
I like Omegas as well.
Yeah, Omega's they make an incredible watch. that $3,000 to $5,000 range, you can get a lot of great watches. So, but if you don't have that kind of money, but you still want a good watch, it's okay to get another watch that doesn't meet that standard.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that takes away from you and how you feel about the watch and how good of a watch is and how long the watch will last.
Ironically enough, I've never felt that like that. Oh, this makes me less than or not, because it's kind of like when they say do what you love. I only buy what I love.
Exactly.
Because I'm buying it for me and not for everyone else around me.
Yeah.
So, like I said, one of the things that I look at when I'm making a watch purchase is also, do I like this watch? Yes. Now, is this watch mass produced on a large scale? If it is, then I'm like, no, I want it to be rare. I want it to be a conversation watch.
Well, the question is too, though, do you ever think that when they tell you that it's a certain number, do you think it's really that certain number?
I don't think it's that. I never do, because I think of it like diamonds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like at any moment, in South Africa, they could release a good amount of diamonds, and the market could, just be highly inflated or otherwise.
Well, could you think if they tell you that this is one of 300, why is it not more expensive than how much I'm buying it for? If that's the case, at least in the sense of say if you had. Let's say when Spider-Man came out of the comic book, and they make this watch that was supposed to be from that year, whatever it may be, and it had Spider-Man on it, and they only made 300 of it. And then you're like, well, they reshoot it 30 years later. Same company, same watch, but it's 30 years later. Hopefully the watch that you got originally has more value than the reissued one because of how much older it is.
It would.
Yeah, well, that's the hope.
Yeah.
With watches, if you have it as an investment. If you don't have an investment, it doesn't matter at all.
One of the things that I realized, though, I always think that there's always someone out there that is chasing the real thing.
Yes.
And that's what I've learned. And there's been instances where things that I didn't think were valuable to me personally had zero value to me, where I'm just like, okay, I can just have this for free. Like, this person's like not that. Because whatever attachment they have to, maybe it was a family thing with them that they got the love for that particular thing. Like I had these DC shoes a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I was never a great skateboarder or anything.
Sure.
But
But when you say DC shoes, it's like when you say Vans. It's like when you say there's things that you relate to. If you knew what a McGill skateboard was, you knew what a McGill skate. You know what it looked like. The bottom is Santa Cruz. I get you.
Yeah. So I had these DC shoes that when I went to the store, they had a weird promotion going on, I think, at that particular store, and they had these leather DC shoes. And again, I'm in that stage where don't have bills.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get them.
Yeah.
And so I bought them, and I wore these shoes like everywhere. And I would always get compliments on them because a lot of people just didn't see leather. They were green leather DC shoes.
Oh, nice.
And, someone bought them from me. It was off the street. Just
really? That's awesome.
Like literally just off the street. So I went to Boston for the first time, and this was, I want to say, maybe 2014.
Okay.
So it was when I was in college. And when I was in Boston, I'd never experienced snow before, and it wasn't even supposed to snow.
Yeah.
It ended up being a snowstorm. My DC shoes aren't meant for snow.
Yeah.
Right? No. So the roads, the snow plowers didn't start yet or anything, so we just got off the airport and had to walk like a mile. I didn't, I slipped and fell a bunch of times. Just the weird tourist guy from Florida that's falling with his other friend that's also from Florida.
Sure.
And the shoes were kind of morphed because of the snow.
Yeah.
And I went to a shoe repair shop, which ironically was in Boston. And
call a cobbler, by the way.
I didn't want to use that term. I didn't
Why?
I didn't know if people knew what that is.
Oh, come on! If you're not listen, if you're listening to this podcast right now, we're talking about watches. My hope would be if we say the word cobbler, they kind of know that it's a person who works on shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, if not, you could have watched what's the there's a movie with Adam Sandler and he's a cobbler. Isn't that or was his dad a cobbler? I don't remember what the movie was. There's an Adam Sandler movie where he is like, and I think the shoes, like when he fixes people's shoes, they were magical or something like that.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. So anyway, random thought, but go ahead with your cobbler story.
Again, one of those really perfect instances of just when
one
you're
of the oldest
young.
cities in the U.S. By the way, Boston, Massachusetts,
and that family had been there for literally hundreds of years.
Okay,
right. So in the family, and this guy is maybe 70-something years old. Again, I tell him that I was like, I know this is going to be a dumb Florida thing.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you can fix
my shoe?
My shoe. He said, "Of course I can." It's like, and you don't have to worry about it because it's your first time here in the city.
Okay. Nice.
He takes care of it. One of his customers came in, and anyone who's going to a cobbler more than likely has money. Because more than likely, not stereotyping.
Especially in a town like that, you probably have a lot of guys that wear really expensive shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things for cobblers is like if you have, reattaching your sole or resoling expensive shoes because of the cost, like say they're $2,000 for a pair of shoes, cost you $200, and he fixes them like they're new. You're going to pay the $200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the customer comes in.
Yeah.
He goes, "Are those leather?" I was going to do the Boston accent, but I'm not going to do it. He's like, "Are those leather DC, shoes?" And I was like, "Yeah," and now they're kind of messed up.
Yeah.
He goes, "I buy them from you. I'll even buy you a pair of shoes." Like, and he did.
Really?
He did.
Now, what did he buy you though? Do you remember what he bought you?
All the shoes that were in the store were handmade by the cobbler. Those were his shoes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the thing about that, though, was when I was in Boston, I didn't bring a winter coat. And, I was just wearing a regular jacket.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, it was a snowstorm there and everything. Yeah. So I needed that money because I didn't factor that in my budget that I was going to need that.
Sure.
And that's what I ended up doing.
Did you have an extra pair of shoes, though?
I did, but
okay.
But still, it was not shoes for the snow.
Yeah,
that still was the problem that I ended
had
up
going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even though he's paid me well, I still had to buy a sweater
jacket.
and boots.
Yeah.
That I would never wear again, more than likely.
Yeah.
So it just worked out, in my favor that happened. So if I could have bought a watch in that moment, I would have bought a watch in that moment. But necessity dictated that I needed a jacket and boots.
Have you had a moment that you wanted to buy a watch separate from this one, but you didn't?
Yes. I remember there was a time when I wanted to buy, it was actually a Rolex.
Oh, really?
It was a Rolex. And
okay, so I'm going to ask this question and just take it for what it is. Do you remember what Rolex it was?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just like, that's what I'm saying. At that time, it was just because I was there and I had the money. Yeah. And I'm young. I don't have a family or anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I should do it. Despite knowing that, like, the watch needs upkeep and whatnot.
Sure.
My friend said, remember how, you had all these watches before and the maintenance and stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to go through that again? And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, it was just one of those things that,
sure,
in that moment, I had to rationalize that I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what milestone event I need. Also, it won't be just a money thing, but there has to be the significant milestone for me to have the Rolex, to be like, this is this.
Yeah.
So that way, if I pass it on to my family, they know what the watch represents. It's not just the watch, but it's the story with the watch as well.
Oh yeah, no. I don't know if I'd buy a Rolex. I don't know. I'd probably lean more towards the Tudor, maybe an Omega, but depending upon what the experience would be, I almost would also take the money that I would spend on a Rolex and buy 4 watches that I know would be just as good for why I would want them. Like you look at Hamilton, their khaki field watch.
Yes.
Is a great watch.
I like those watches.
$450, $500, up to about $700.
Do you like Movados?
Movados are good. I've just never been a real big fan. Their faces, a lot to me. I mean, they have a lot of plain face watches. I mean, there's some that actually, have some good design and stuff. Nothing against them.
What about Delias?
Huh?
Do you like the Delias?
Oh, they're okay. They're a good watch, but definitely like I've already said, like Longines is a good watch. Tissot has the Gentleman.
I've seen those as well.
Tissot Gentleman is a great watch. It kind of features itself off of a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, which right now, if you look at, they redid the Oyster Perpetual for Rolex. So I think it came out in 2021 or 2022, and they go for about like $9,500. You get an older one because it's more of a bigger size, like a 41. Like I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, so I have a big wrist. So, and so with that, I can take up to like a 42, 43 millimeter watch, and it doesn't look big on me.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
So if you had to say that watches represent something for you, what do watches represent for you as a person?
Well, my hope would be is that it speaks to just how I carry myself every day. To me, like this watch that I have on today, if I wear it, it's being useful. It has a purpose. It's not the flashiest. It's not the most expensive, but it gets the job done. And my hope is with who I am that I know I'm not the flashiest. And to me, I know I'm not the prettiest, but I know my purpose, and I stay within that, every day. I work hard. I stay true to what I need to stay true to. I know that, like with this watch being imperfect, that I am imperfect as well. But that over time, I still stay the course.
Yeah.
And I think a good watch does that. I think a good watch allows you to, understand that time is fleeting, and that you need to make time work for you, not the other way around. And that allows you to have a schedule in your day. Like I'm a morning person. I get up early. Why? Because that's just how I'm, even on the weekends. Saturday, I can't usually sleep past 7 o'clock. It's just how I am. It's how I'm built. So even when I'm off, I still will have a watch on, because then I can, get through my day. I can say, okay, well, I've done this so far. I have this much stuff to do the rest of my day. I want to be able to get it done. So, but then sometimes I'll think of it as a burden just because of the fact that I'm like, man, it's already been this amount of time during the day. Why don't I have more time to do stuff that I need to? And then other things get piled upon you and stuff like that. But, but then also I definitely know that if I see a watch, I like it or I don't. Like, I mean, I'm just, to me, I'm that, not focused, but understanding of who I am and what I like. I like simple, like a field watch to me is a great watch. Just because it's made to be worked, it's made to be useful, and I do like having watches that either wind or that are self-winding because they last. Yeah, they got to be serviced. It's fine with me, and I'm okay with that. Usually, if you spend money on a watch, though, usually 5 years. That with every 5 years, a watch has to be serviced, and and I would say that if you do buy that type of watch, know where they have to be serviced.
Yes.
Know what you need to do to care for that watch, and then go from there and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And as long as you know that, things are good.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, I can remember my purchases and the adventures with them that, okay, first time someone was honest enough to say, hey, I can't work on this.
Yeah.
They could have just taken my money and given me a bad experience, and they didn't. I'd say that watches represent for me, though, not to switch things up.
No, it's okay.
They represent me, like the time itself. I think that, I always joke with my wife that, I'm going to reach a point in my life where I'm going to build this huge shed, and you guys need to enjoy me now because once I'm older, I'm just going to be working on projects. Just when I'm in my 60s, that's something that I want to do, just work on projects,
Yeah.
and if my family wants to be a part of those projects, then sure. But
Yeah.
it's just I look forward to that time, and I also stay present, and that's what the watches are. Is that in every moment that I'm present. I'm fully in those moments,
Yeah.
and I give nothing else to those moments. I love spending time with my family as a whole, but I also love spending time with just my son, just my daughter, and just my wife.
Yeah.
That way, it's if you're at dinner table and you're talking, not everyone will get to talk equally, because you're going to have the family member that is more outspoken, the
Yeah.
shyer, family member. So now I use that. Like, I see my grandmother every week, and she's one of my best friends in the entire world, and it's just I'm present.
Yeah.
In all the people that I encounter that
Yeah.
are part of my life. I believe in a smaller, circle.
Yeah.
That way I'm there, I'm present. It's
Sure.
easy to be present, and it's easy to be real. I don't want to spend my time, with people who they don't have to be me or like me, but we have to have that same understanding of the value of time.
Yeah.
And you'll find that if someone can't respect their own time, they definitely won't respect your time.
That's true.
And so then it boils into other things such as respect.
Yeah.
And how I feel respected. For example, you'll have, some people that maybe they'll call you whenever they feel like calling you, maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, not because there's an emergency, but just because they're up, because they don't respect your time. And
Yeah.
you learn those things as you
Sure.
transition through life. And I just enjoy the story behind the watch. I enjoy the fact that the watch is also an embodiment of me, the person.
Yeah. So then, what's the next watch?
The next watch for me, I'm actually looking at another Invicta. So it's this part of their Pro Diver series. I forgot what the collaborator is. So there's a series that they're called the Dua Lipa series of Invicta. Yeah. They're just the art series.
Yeah.
And I love all of the watches in those series. And I actually almost completed the series, and I gave all the series to my friend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, literally, I told him the last watch in the series, I think, and I thought it was the last watch, but there's actually one more. I thought it was the last one, and I told him, I'm going to get you this watch, but I'm going to wear it, for 2 occasions, and then I'll give it to you. And he thought I was joking. So he went and he bought the watch, and I was like, I don't care if you have the watch. I told you I was going to buy it. You shouldn't have bought it, You're still going to take it. So I did, Yeah. It was nice. It was a snake skin.
Oh, wow.
So I needed it to wear for a specific outfit.
Okay.
Where it was leather boots, and I had a gator belt.
Okay.
And I had the snakeskin watch, so I could make a joke.
Where were you going?
It was just a camping thing.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to make a joke on, I said, gator.
Crocodile Dundee.
Exactly. The gator eats the cow, right? But the python eats everything. That was the joke that I made.
Okay.
And the fashion,
But did the people get it when you wore it?
They did.
That's the question.
I was around the perfect demographic to make it to make it work. Okay. So I just need to tell that joke.
Well, because that would be that wouldn't be good if they didn't get it.
Yeah. So like I said,
they were just trying to figure out why the crocodile and the cow and everyone, and then you have a python and all these things mixed together. You'd be like, did you get it? I hope you did, because if not, I'm still laughing about it because it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So I did it, and then once I got to do it for those 2 days, and it served its purpose, he has them.
Okay.
So I think that's the story too, because now he has a story about the watch, and he's gonna have to try to make it work in a joke.
And that may be tough.
Exactly.
Unless he goes to South Florida where there's a lot of pythons.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons.
And then he could just say, "Hey, where's that from? Oh, I killed a python. Now he's on my wrist."
Yes. Yes.
And I am the python hunter. I'm just saying.
Crocodile Dundee.
Have you ever seen that movie?
I've seen both Crocodile Dundee movies.
Okay, good.
Of course.
Paul Hogan.
Yeah.
Good actor. It's pretty much his main claim to fame with those 2 movies.
Yeah, the one where he's in New York and then the one where he's in Australia.
Yep.
I watched them both as a kid. So, fun fact.
And you say as a kid, that makes me feel old. Wow. That's okay though. That's cool. I'm a grandpa, so I have to take it.
No, you don't have to take it.
I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna hold
People
on to
tell
it.
me I'm old now.
Yeah.
Like I'm 30 years old, and there'll be this 19-year-old kid that like says something, and I'll say something back, and they'll say, "Oh, it's because you're old." Like I remember I was getting coffee,
Yeah.
and there was a kid at the register, and I guess the register wasn't working.
Okay.
And I said, I was like, "Hey, dude, is everything okay? You're not really talking to anyone."
Yeah.
And and he's like, "Well, the machine isn't working, bro." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, people have cash." Like, and he's like, "The machine isn't working." I'm like, "The register is still working."
Yeah.
The thing is, what he wants to say is that the calculator on on the register wasn't working. I'm like, dude, you can pull out your phone, use your phone as a calculator if you need to. But he's just like, the machine isn't working. I'm like, it's working. Just use your phone or the calculator, like an actual manual calculator. And when I mentioned the manual calculator, you know what he said to me? It's because you're old. That's what he said. He's like, literally just said, it's because you're old. That's why you would mention a calculator. And what I was gonna say to him, it's because you're stupid why you can't calculate. But I didn't say that, So I just was like, here's $10, have a good day. Like, I just wanted my coffee to be in and out.
Yeah. Well, I think those are times that God gives us to give grace to those around.
Yes. That's the other thing. With time, I've learned that you don't say anything at all sometimes. It's
well, again, as I have learned as I get older, it just gives me more opportunity to learn about myself and how I relate to others.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of that is knowing what I've done and been through. How do I extend that to someone else to let them see who I am?
Mm-hmm.
And as we talk about watches and what it allows us to talk about is our journey and what watches mean to us and stuff. I think watches also, talk about we have opportunity in our own selves with relationship to our Heavenly Father, to the people around us, because that's also predicated on time,
mm-hmm.
right? The more time we spend with Him, the more we get to know Him. The more time we spend with our friends, we get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
The more, as you say, invested we are into those people, the more tangible a relationship is. So I bring that towards the other side of our conversation, and something that you and I think strive for every day is the closeness of that.
Do you know how happy it makes me to hear you say that?
Why is that?
Because there is rarely a time, no pun intended, in which
I think that was intentional.
in which you meet, other people, and it can even be family members. It's not specific, but just people that certain things just click. Either it clicks or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And more times than not, it won't click. But when it does, and you see that this person is just who they are, that's what I want. The simplicity of that is all I want.
Yeah.
Is just, I'm me and you're you, and we're not going to pretend that, hey, I'm really this person, and you're going to pretend, that that's who you are.
True.
That I don't need that. I need just genuine. If it's a Seiko, it's a Seiko.
Yep.
If it's an Invicta, it's an Invicta. It's not something disguised as something else. We're just who we are and being who we are. And I never want to feel that when I'm around someone, like they're not being their true self.
Sure.
And I just don't have time for that in my life. I just want to be me, and I just want you to be you. And it makes me so excited that you're always who you are. And that's why you're one of my favorite peoples.
I appreciate it.
I do mean that. I talk about you, and how excited I was, coming here, to do the podcast with you because of the fact that you're just you.
I appreciate it.
And that is a very beautiful thing, and it warms my heart. I'm just going to say it to you. It warms my heart because there's so many people that they're trying to be someone else, and you can see it.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to strive for everything else but themselves.
Right.
Like, not striving to be the best who they are. They're trying to be the best whoever, tween idol or whoever there is. And
so in you talking about this, I was thinking about this the other day, and this is just my randomness of my brain. So
I love it.
it's a commercial, and it's the premise, and it kind of puts it into a picture, I guess, of the two sides of how people, I think, will look at watches sometimes. Guy comes in the room, he says, "Hey, sir, do you have the time?" He looks at his watch, and he sees it's like a Timex or something. He says, "Well, the Timex watch says it's 2:35," and then his wife, looks at him. He says, "Well, what time is it?" He says, "Well, he has only Timex time, so I don't know if that's really the time." And then they walk down the hall and they see another guy. And say, "What time is that?" He goes, and you see it's like a Rolex, and he goes, "Well, my Rolex says it's 2:36," and he goes, "Oh, well, that must be the real time."
Yeah.
And then and the premise behind it is either you're on the side that says no matter what the time says or who makes it, it's just the time that it is, and it doesn't matter. You just go on with your day. But then there's the other side of it that you look at it and they say, well, it's a Rolex, or it has to be that way because that's the only way you can look at it, right? Or to me, the Timex Seiko person is just like, you know what? Life is what it is.
Exactly.
You take people for what they are.
Yes.
And a watch still only just tells time.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it's $2 or 20,000. It still just tells time. It just does it in different ways. And how does that express who you are? Right?
The one watch I will say that if I had it, it would make me truly happy again.
Yeah.
Is my Casio digital watch. That was my favorite watch because it's
now was it a calculator or just a straight digital?
Straight digital.
Okay.
I had the calculator as well.
Yeah.
But the digital, I had it for 12 years and I never needed to change the battery for 12 years.
Did it have the blue lettering on the bottom of it?
Yes.
Square screen, blue lettering on the bottom.
Yes.
I know exactly the watch you're talking about.
Like indestructible.
Yeah, indestructible as could be. Yep.
And someone stole it. And this is one of those things that, in a lot of ways, I'm naive to certain things because I don't expect certain things to happen.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't grow up that way to expect it. So, if we're on the same, soccer team or whatever, my understanding is that, okay, we're teammates. We wouldn't steal from each other.
Yeah.
Like maybe the other team would, but I wouldn't, so when I lost that watch, it's like this gap in my watch heart. Not in my real heart, but my watch heart.
Yeah.
That there's no watch that could replace that feeling and that attachment that I had to that watch.
Yeah.
Because prior to that watch, no matter what I did or where I went, every other watch was an occasion watch.
Yeah.
Like I'll wear a watch every 7 days a week, but this watch has me for 6. Because, if I'm going to go to a dinner or to church or whatever, like I'd wear any other watch, but for that watch, that was the one.
Yeah. What about a G-Shock?
So I've had a G-Shock too. My G-Shock was pretty was amazing.
They're a great watch, and you talk to any watch person, if they're just a normal watch person, they'll say there's nothing wrong with a G-Shock.
There isn't.
And they're under $200.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. They're water resistant. They will keep time forever. You can get the digital. You can get the one that's got the analog. It just
so I had the cross one. The one was digital and analog.
Yeah.
So it was a black and gold one, and that one I actually was a part of one of my sets. Too.
Okay.
So that particular one, you could. Whatever time you set with it, say that you go into a different time zone, you just click over to that time zone.
Yep.
And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
It just I don't have to worry about just click and I'm good. Like it's 2:00 in China right now.
Yeah, I would probably say that as far as a watch memory, probably is when I went to basic training when I was in the military. We got to Fort Knox and it was like pouring rain. It was really late at night. Or early in the morning, I don't remember. And of course, we're on post the next day, and we got all of our stuff to go to basic training, and they put you in this holding building, and you go to the BX or the PX that's there, and I had money to buy a watch. I didn't have one. So, and it was like a Timex Explorer, I think is what it was. And I mean, it had the Velcro strap,
Mhm.
you know, and it was water resistant, waterproof, whatever. You can get it soaking wet, didn't matter. And I was like, okay. And that got me through basic training, and I kept that watch. I kept it through my military service, and I even kept it when I got into fire rescue.
Mhm.
And I had it, and it just, I beat the junk out of it, and it died. So, but I kept on to it even after it died for like a couple of years. Felt like 7, 8 years probably after it died, because I thought I could fix it. And
Mhm.
of course I couldn't. So, but I get what you're saying, that type of thing of what it gets you through, of what
Yeah.
you know, so, and, you know, it goes back to the basics of what it was made for.
Yeah.
It was made to go through getting the junk beat out of it.
Mhm.
And, you know, like the watch I have on, I could beat this thing to death. It's got a mineral crystal. It doesn't have a sapphire, you know, and I could change it out and put a sapphire in it. But to me, it takes away from what the watch was intended to be. You know, it's certified to go 200 meters underwater. It's one of the only watches from, you know, Seiko from this time period. That's why it's so collectible. That's why people like it. It has a following to it, but it has a purpose.
Mhm.
You know, even if people don't like Apple Watches still have a purpose. You know, it does. It can tell you your heart rate. It can tell you these things that you can never do before.
Yes.
And if you think about it,
And your sleep cycle too.
it can do all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, if you're over 65 and you have an Apple Watch on you, you should feel safe.
Yes.
I mean, and if you think about it in that sense, it's different if we're younger because we don't have to worry about that much
Mhm.
so much. Even though it's got gadgets and gizmos on it, you could play games, you can listen to music, you do all this other stuff if you want to. But if I come down to it, I want to wear something like this.
Mhm.
But then I also know that like you'll see me on Sundays and I'll have the PRX on. Why? Because if I'm armor bearing or something like that, I usually won't wear something like this just because of how it looks. But then, I mean, you look at PC and he has watches.
Mhm.
He has a pretty neat watch collection when you look at his stuff. So, but again, his watches fit him.
Exactly.
You know? And my only hope for anyone, if you have a watch on, be purposeful with it.
Yeah.
Have a conversation if you can with someone about it, so that you just go, oh, it's a watch.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
don't be that person.
Mhm.
And the reason I say it is because if you're intentional with who you are, then you should be intentional about with what you have and wear. Now, when it comes to clothing and whatever like that, I don't decide all that, but I do. I'm a shorts guy. That's what everyone gets surprised when they see me in pants.
Mhm.
It's just how it is. I'm in pants 5 days a week. I'm in a hospital. I wear dress clothes. It's just how I have to be. So and before that, I wore scrubs or I had a fire uniform, whatever it may be. So I always had to wear pants.
Yep.
I want to wear shorts if I'm not at work.
So, and I can totally relate to that. I see, like, okay, like these, I've had these for a while.
Yeah, I see these shoes a lot. You've worn them the last couple of times I've seen you.
These are Vans.
Yeah, no, I know what they are.
And I just, it's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
It's just a comfort thing.
Comfort.
It makes me feel like I'm Crocodile Dundee when I wear these.
That's okay. All I look for is your big, knife, and you don't have one really.
Oh, I do.
Well, no, I'm saying that you're wearing it.
Oh, it's a full set.
Yeah.
You know,
Nice.
It's a full set.
Awesome.
So again, talking about, I'll touch on two things because it ties in.
Yeah.
So when I went to when I got these shoes, they were a gift from my brother. There was a knife smith that I went to, and he's selling knives, and he was like doing like a demonstration.
Yeah.
You ever go to any of the like fairs and stuff?
Sure.
Okay. So I was doing a demonstration, but he was like, you know what? Anyone who buys a knife today, I'll custom make a holster for it. You know. And so I was like, word, and I was about it. So he did, and I still, like, to this day, like, I've, probably 5 years, I always have it. Always.
Yeah, so I always have usually a knife. Like if you go into my vehicle, I've got one also. But I'm also a guy who's a carry conceal guy, and I usually always have something on me, of some sort. So, but yeah, I always have a pocket knife on me. I always have a Leatherman.
Mhm.
I always have certain things. But then on top of that, being a medic, as long as I have, I've also got a tourniquet. I've also got, first aid stuff. I've got a fire extinguisher in my car. but that's only recent. So,
Yes.
but not that I've needed it or anything, but just the resourcefulness is like you can't. That's just how I am.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you see somebody, if they're hurt, you try to help.
Yes.
If the other day I'm leaving work and there's a lady out in the parking lot, and she's older, and she has her grandson with him, and he's probably in his 20s, but kid's struggling to change a flat tire.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was hot. Like I didn't complain, but man, it was so hot, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna help, and and I wasn't in my dress clothes because I got changed. So she's like, well, do you work here? I said, well, actually, I do. I don't just randomly go into parking lots and help people, drive by, like, get out of my car. I mean, if I needed to, I would without a question. But in this case, I was like, no, ma'am, I work here. I'm part of the leadership of the facility and help them out and change their tire because the young man was having a hard time getting the spare down.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, let's just YouTube it, bro. Let's not make this hard for us. So
Yeah.
I got their car and put it on YouTube, and we watched how to get the tire down, and we did it, and we fixed the tire and got them on their way. And but again, that as funny as it could be, you could almost equate to, what did I have on my wrist? Was there something? And I had this watch on my wrist that day, and but that also, to me, I had never, and this may be my poor judgment, but I usually don't see a lot of guys with Rolexes on who do that.
Yeah.
And at least that's my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a negative against them or that those kind of people wouldn't. But to me, now there's one person that I know, and I've gotten to know over the last 6-7 months, and he's someone that has worked with me, and he bought a Rolex.
Mm-hmm.
But he bought a Rolex when he graduated med school, so he's a physician and has been a doctor now for, I think, about 15 years. And I asked him about it. I said, well, Rolex, huh? Oh, yeah, Submariner. And I think it's 5513, which is the older, I think the 5512 replaced it. Anyway, rotating bezel, it's black face. Absolutely awesome watch, right? If you picked and Rolex Submariners are great watches. To me, 1967, 5513, blue on blue. I love blue watches. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to blue faces,
is that why you like Tudors as well?
I do. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. So just that blue on blue is just a pretty one. My Tag Heuer that I have is a blue on blue, mm-hmm. Which it's just neat. That's just what I tend to lend to. But anyway, no, but that simple Rolex with that black on black is just a pretty watch.
Yes.
Not pretentious. To me, it's just, and he wears it every day though. Mm-hmm. He doesn't matter where he is, doesn't matter what he does. I'm like, dude, you're a watch guy because you wear the watch.
Exactly.
It's like with shoes, you wear the shoes. I have a pair of 2012 Jordan 4 white cements. My only pair of Jordans I have. They were given to me, but I wear them.
Yes.
And the only thing that was told to me when they were given to me was, you better wear these. If you don't wear them, I want them back. Those were the directions the person gave me. And this guy's a shoe guy, like a big shoe guy. And I said, okay. My son, Thatcher, got me a pair of Bono's Nike SC2 trainers, the Auburn ones.
I'm not going to lie. I know nothing about shoes.
It's okay.
So I like talking about shoes.
Bo Jackson.
I know who Bo Jackson
had a shoe that was white and it was orange and purple. Mm-hmm. They called it the Auburn. One of my favorite shoes growing up. Can never afford it, but he ended up getting me a pair. So those are, but I wear them. Mm-hmm. I don't just let them sit there. Well, I think the same with the watch. You should wear it. Now, if here's the thing though. If I end up getting, say, a Tudor 41 Heritage or a Pelagos or whatever it may be, dude, I would wear the junk out of that.
But as you should.
But there's a reason behind it, yes. Right? And my other watches would sit without a question. And they would just have to sit because of what that watch is, and the ideal behind that watch, the lineage that watch comes from, the company, and there's, like, with the Heritage 41, so there's two different versions. They have one which they call the Smiley, mm-hmm. which a lot of their Tudors, the older ones, have the Smiley on the bottom, and the newer in-house movements, which didn't use the ETA movement. And even though it still kind of has an ETA, but or the ETA movement, and Tudor's gone and done a couple of things that makes it an in-house movement in comparison to the Salida, like SW2 or whatever. I don't know. The smiley face looks kind of original, man. It's just kind of a happy watch. Like you look down at it, you're like, oh, that's pretty neat right
Yeah.
there. So again, but going back to what I was saying, this guy wore this watch. He has like a $20,000 watch on it just because of how old this watch is, how it's aged, the version of watch that it is, and how much. But he wears it every day, and he is not pulled back by it by any means. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now if you have, it has a purpose.
But if you have 5 of them and 4 of them sit, or you just rotate just because you want someone to know that you have 5 Rolexes, I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that person. If you want to be that, go for it. There's nothing against you. But to me, I'd rather have the one.
So
right?
I was thinking about why the Casio was so important to me.
Yeah.
And I realized that the Casio, it marked the last time I was allowed to do survival training.
Oh wow! Okay.
That's what it marked. The last time, So it's
how old were you?
Maybe 25.
Okay.
Yeah, 25. I wasn't 26 yet. So yeah, 25. So we go on this survival training trip, and even though it's a survival training trip, it turned into real survival.
Okay.
And long story short, so we're going out like into the swamp, and the goal was to just be out there, just bare minimum. Of course, we had a tourniquet as well, and we brought water, but just because it's the swamp, no filtration system. There's ways to filter water as well, you're gonna have to make a raised bed fireplace. You're gonna have to build everything, by hand.
Just get one of those charcoal filters, put it in a thing, put the water in it. When you pour it out, it's good.
But it was meant to, that one was going to be like the rough one, And so it was also after a major hurricane, because we decided to keep the date.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going down river, and normally I'm younger than everyone else at this point, so everyone else is ex-military.
Yeah.
But because I'm younger, I'm always ahead of the pack. But this time, everyone's just making fun of me because I'm way back. And I'm like, guys, I am tired. I'm winded. I was like, I've never been in a canoe, a kayak, and felt so bogged down before.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe you're just getting old. I was like, no, I'm like really tired.
Yeah.
Little did I know that the canoe was taking on water. There was a hole in it, right?
That's so good.
And I'm saying canoe, but kayak. So, and I'm strapped in. I have my pack on as well.
Yeah.
And I had my cell phone in there and everything. So while we're going down river, I flip. Mind you, this is after a hurricane, and there's trees have fallen into the water that you can't see.
Oh, you can't see.
So then I have my pack on. So now I'm caught underwater, and my pack is attached on to the kayak. And the kayak has water, so I'm, submerged. So now, even though all these things are happening, I'm like, man, if I cut my pack, like I'm down a kayak, I'm down my backpack, like something's gonna go. And that decision, it was a pretty tough one. And I mean, I'm still 3 years into my marriage at this point as well. So, all these thoughts are racing to my head, and I was like, what? I cut it, and and I lost my cell phone, my wallet, and I was able to get the kayak. Like the kayak was because of how it was positioned, and me and my buddies, we pulled it onto the riverbank, set up camp, and we patched it and everything. But that night was the best slept. This is the best sleep I ever endured because of how tired I was.
Yeah.
But my wife, she was trying to call me, couldn't get me, and she was trying to call my friends, couldn't get my friends. Because there's no reception, right? Just because she found out she was pregnant. And
wow! Oh man!
because she was pregnant, the fact that she couldn't, reach me, that marked the end of me doing
survival
training ever again.
Okay. So one of the cool things, and I think I'll wrap it up with my last question here.
Yes.
So if you had to make a watch,
Mm-hmm.
and they said Oakley, we're going to give you this ability to make a watch. One of the key things that a lot of people sometimes look at is what's underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's really cool sometimes when you can see a clear back and see the movement and all that stuff. But if the back was closed and you could put whatever you wanted to on the back of your watch.
I already know.
So the question is, would it be on every watch you had, or would it only be on one?
So it would be on only one.
Okay.
And it would be the idea. So the idea is a guy running, and he's about to jump on a surfboard.
Yeah.
So it's like the surfboard is just a little bit ahead of him, but you can see that he's about to jump on the surfboard.
Okay. Why?
So a long time ago, I had a dream that I was driving, but I felt like I just wasn't. It was this recurring dream that even though I'm driving, I'm not going as fast as I can go, and I'm driving through Utah.
Sure.
That stretch of there's nothing.
Nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going, and I hit 180, and it's still just not fast enough. And so I get out of the car, and I put my running shoes on, and I start clocking. So I just start running, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm faster than the car, and now I'm faster, and I'm just running. Kind of like the scene when Superman is about to fly.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Forrest Gump.
No. No. So that just dream. It was just this dream that just kept happening over and over again. And for some reason, at the end of the dream, when I thought I was going to fly, there was a surfboard, and I jump on the surfboard and start surfing.
Okay.
And I just, that would just be such a cool thing to me. Just kind of like the Jumpman symbol.
Yeah.
But it's the Oakman symbol.
Okay. Okay.
Hashtag Oakman.
Okay. I'll go with mine, and I have two.
Let's hear them.
I would add. So the first one would be a pelican.
Okay, because you live in Florida, or
no, not at all. Actually, I love birds.
Okay.
But the pelican, this actually, in essence, would be. I think this is what they call the penguin pelican.
Okay.
Which is the biggest pelican in the world.
Yes.
So
they're jerks as well.
Yeah, and
they're jerks as well.
Yeah. So, that's just pelicans are different. They can fly over land and sea. They have different lifestyles and habits of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also kind of like caretakers.
Yes.
So the other would be probably a bear. So being a grandfather now, that's my grandpa name.
Papa Bear?
No, it's just Bear.
Okay.
Yeah, so just BEAR. So, and, I would want, as a way for me to, pass on to my kids, those would be things that I would probably pass on, would be those watches that were made and that had that on the back of it. And they would only be given to them because they're part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that it brings together myself and who I was, what I've made, and what I'm passing along, because that's the premise of the watches, right? And as we talk about this conversation and everything we brought together about this, is that we know that whatever we're doing, we're going to pass on to those that come after us.
Yes.
And that's what this is really about, is doing that, is that we've been able to talk about so many things, just stemming from why we wear a watch, but it's so much more. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that as we grow, we never forget that who we are and who we become is people who make mistakes, are imperfect. We not only give grace, but receive it, and that we grow from it. And that's the key, right? So I just want to thank you for letting me come and do this, man. Yeah, this is great. I really, for the first time.
I think someone needed to hear that. What you just said? I think someone needed to hear that.
Well, good. Well, and the hope is that by doing this, we only not talk about just things that we think are fun and good to talk about, but we also remind ourselves why we're here. And above all, that's the most important thing. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I've had those opportunities and that I get to share things like this with you, because to me, this is a new experience and I've loved it, man. It's been great just sitting here talking.
Yeah, and that's why
So-
we're going to do it again.
Excellent. I look forward to it. So you let me know what it is, and I'll be happy to do it.
All right. Well, I'll shoot you a text message.
All right.
You know, our schedules already line up, so that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.